right now we're in I think a pretty precarious time
Yeah.
with the industrialization of food plus medicine coming in to save us from that food.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to create this revolution, because I'm looking at this. And, if you know anything about the industrialization of food, it is frightening. They hire food scientists that they actually call craveability experts.
Whoa.
Yes, they design food to make it more appealing, more, there's a debate still, but I think that it's pretty much going the way that they're really trying to make food addictive. And also, medicine is not healthcare, it's truly sick care, because it's really just designed to help you with your symptoms as opposed to cure your symptoms. Yeah. And then you have the pharmaceutical industry now with all of these weight loss medications coming in to save the day. And all three, if you look at all three, the correlation between the three is that they're all trying to make money.
Hey everybody, this is Diane Gilman, formerly known as the Queen of Jeans, but now the proud host of my podcast, Too Young to Be Old. And what do we do on Thursdays? Well, we do Fashion Thursdays with Diane. And I do want to say, if you want to totally rethink your relationship with food so that you can live a diet-free life, something I have never experienced, but I would love to get there, then you've got to meet Dr. Suptra Tovar, who is, here we go, health psychotherapist, clinical health psychologist, fitness expert, dietitian. I mean, literally, Suptra, how do you pack all of this into a young life? It's crazy. But the real truth is, you're all about realigning people, young and old, teenagers, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds plus, to love their body and live life free of body shaming.
Absolutely. That is my complete and total mission, especially in my educational journey, which started in college as a pre-med biology major. Knew that I really wanted to go into health, and had the inspiration of watching somebody very close to me suffering from an eating disorder fuel me, brought me out to Los Angeles, where I became a Pilates instructor and saw even more disordered eating and difficulties with eating disorders, and feeling helpless and not able to actually fully help someone the way that I wanted to, while at the same time having difficulties with myself with weight and shape. And that's why I decided, okay, I want to learn everything that there is to learn about nutrition so that I can help people make the choices that are right for them. And when you go into school, you actually learn a lot of like diet-centered thinking. And I'm noticing that, people go on these diets, they lose some weight, they get off the diets, they gain weight, they gain even more weight. And I'm like, this can't be the way. I can't just be telling somebody, go eat 1,200 calories and you lose weight, when it's not true. And that's why I thought, it's got to be more than this. It's got to be something physiological going on in the body, and it's got to be something psychological going on in the brain. And that's why I went on to study clinical health psychology and to get my doctorate. And that's when all of the pieces came together, and I learned how dieting actually sets us up for failure.
Now, you're talking to the totally correct person. Not only have I been on a diet yo-yo all my life, but I've gone as high. I'm probably about 130 now. I bought a scale, but I'm afraid to use it and get depressed. So shortly, I'll figure out by looking at that scale how much I weigh. But I've been up to 200 pounds, down to as little as 105 pounds, everywhere in the middle. And it's yo-yoed my entire life. But I am in the fashion profession. That's where I began. I was in it for 50 years. And as much as they were lectured about, it's so bad, all the models look anorexic, they never really went to any kind of realistic body weight mass in modeling. They did for like 1 minute and they were right back to
Yes.
anorexic again. And what fascinated me after I spoke to you, I did some research and I realized that it is so sociological how we manage to praise or abuse body shape depending on the times. In the 1800s, mid 1800s, it was all about meat on your bones. You were an
Yes.
attractive woman and a comforting woman if you were very round, but it was also you had enough money to eat. So you were
Exactly.
part of the upper class. Shoot forward to the Industrial Revolution. And it also had to do with if you were out in the sun and got a tan in the 1800s, you were a farm girl. You were a day
Yes.
not good. Then we go to the Industrial Revolution, and Coco Chanel is a big part of this, and she's out on yachts, and there's things called bathing suits, and then want to be thinner. And if you're in the Industrial Revolution as a worker, you're indoors in a factory. So if you're wealthy, you're outdoors getting a tan. And now we
Yes.
to today, which we will get to a little bit later, and it's all about AI, artificial intelligence, the obviously the influence that filters have in terms of social media and young girls, and how we as middle-aged women and beyond feel about a less than perfect body. And I am going to ask you, because I know that you counsel so many women of so many ages
And men.
and men, but our audience is basically female when we come to this. And I know that for teenage girls, I probably would have never survived as a teenager in this day and age because the body shaming is incredible. I told you that I watched a seminar. It was 20 young girls, all in their mid-teens. Not one of them said they ever put a picture of themselves, especially in a bathing suit, online without heavy-duty photoshopping.
Yes.
When you get to middle age, what you're basically told is, we don't want to see you anymore. You're not perfect. Unless you're Kardashian and you can, manipulate the photos to a point that is ultra dramatic. What is your advice for the 50 plus woman who feels like I'm not perfect anymore? All I see is perfection on the internet and television. My life as a female is definitely degraded as I age and over with.
That is a big question because there's so much.
I like it.
Yes, there's so much in there. And you're absolutely right about the shift from, in the, 1800s and even before, how we were praised as women for having breasts and for having extra fat and for being able to be comforting and mothers. And it was revered. And if you look at other cultures, especially how they treat older people, it's different across the world. And I think that that's what's really important to remember right in this culture right now. And so what we're in the middle of is a very toxic diet culture. And diet culture really took off at, around late 1800s to 1900s and on, when the rich upper class wanted to distinguish themselves separately from the lower class. That's very important. And so it's become not just how we look, it's about how much money we have. And so the more that we really focused on that, industry started to come in to cater to that. That's when you started to see those teeny tiny corsets, the crazy bullet bras of the 50s, all of these ways that we have had to try to fit into this unrealistic standard. And there is no perfect body. Even when you see somebody who might fit that perfection, there's no perfection there. There are flaws just like anyone else has, but there's so much pressure because lookism is one bias that's promoted with diet culture, which is the unhealthy pursuit of the thin ideal. But underneath that is more insidious, and that's weightism, which is essentially fat shaming and fat phobia.
Oh, yeah.
And so this industry uses those biases very smartly. They are very adept at using advertising to manipulate us to buy things. So if you look at this, it's really in countries that are, really invested in increasing their industry and their profits. So America being one.
When I was born in 1945, so I was about 10 years old, let's say 1955. Out comes Marilyn Monroe, Sophia Loren, Jane Mansfield, Bridget Bardot, and I'm ready to kill myself. I have no chest at all. I really could have gone, the majority of my life actually did, braless. So I'm looking at giant bullet bra tits, this tiny waist, this flat stomach, and I have none of that. And therefore, as a teenager, I felt like an abject failure. And then when I went into my 20s and I get out of my house and I'm living in a sorority house or whatever I'm doing, I would just go for days without eating to try and at least achieve the tiny waist and the flat stomach, which never happened. When you hold seminars and you are advising people who feel that they're never going to achieve the goal that is set for them by society, how do you shift that mentality to something more personalized and realistic?
Yes, this is my favorite thing of all. I am a big proponent of rejecting diet culture. That's why my book is called Deprogram Diet Culture, because I believe firmly that we as people, especially as females, have a lot of power with our dollars. And if we get very smart about this industry, especially diet culture, we can actually shift this industry into something more holistic and supportive of us. And so I have 3 tips for people to get on the road of pulling themselves away from diet culture, pulling their money away from diet culture, and learning how to tune into themselves. And the first one is, I want everyone out there to go look at their social media feed, because that is where you see most of the toxic imagery.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of power with we're not just a slave to the algorithm. We actually can shape our social media to actually support our mental and physical health. So I ask all my clients and everybody, I ask people in the book and in my online course to look at their feed and hide, block, unfollow anyone and anything that makes them feel bad about themselves.
Whoa.
And you'll be surprised. You could be like, oh, unfollow, hide, block. And then reprogram your social media feed to focus on the things that make you feel good. For me, it's puppies, it's kittens, it's inspiring people.
Yes, it's baby kittens. That
baby
is
kittens.
Entire TikTok feed, that and rock bands from
the
70s and 80s. That is hilarious. I go to bed every night looking at baby kittens playing. But let me ask you this.
How does it make you feel?
Oh, I feel a lot like good. I feel happy.
Yes.
And I recently did a video that's currently on YouTube. We will shorten it for Insta. But it was about ageism in America, of which, how our bodies age is such a big part of any sense of self-pride. We're managing to scrounge out of being 50, 60,
Yeah.
70. I'm about to go into my 80s. And yet, society pushes me to still care about my body shape and
Yes.
still think, if I swear to you, when I stand in front of a mirror, I will chastise myself like, Diane, you ate too much this week. Look at you. Okay, no eating for you today. I am
Mm.
so influenced, and by fashion as well. There are
Yes.
where it's just not
Yes.
relevant. But do you think that everybody has that kind of body dysmorphia because of what's presented to us visually?
Absolutely. Of course. I think you cannot exist in this society and, operate within this society without being inundated with this messaging. And that goes to my second tip. My second tip, and I recommend this for everyone, and I think it is so powerful, is that we stop watching advertisements and we stop subscribing to fashion magazines. I know we do need industry, but like I said, I want a shape industry that supports us. And right now, when you look at advertisements, they're all very insidious and manipulative and all designed to make you feel like you need something that you don't have, that you've got to buy this thing so that you can look like that. And we actually don't most often need what is being sold to us. So if we can actually just take the time that we were using to consume advertising or consume fashion magazines, we can actually use that time in a way that betters us, whether it's picking up a hobby, learning a new skill, reading a book, anything that enriches us is going to be better for us than being inundated with advertising. And I think that that is one very powerful thing that we can become conscious of and reject in our lives and then take our attention elsewhere.
I thought for years I couldn't live without fashion magazines. And then what I started to see in those magazines was, number one, the editorials had nothing to do with my life, even though I was in fashion. They were ridiculous. You needed a roadmap. Yeah, I'll tell you a story. So there was a hot new designer out. I had to go to some important event. There was a cocktail party. I bought a cocktail dress from this guy, and it wasn't cheap. 2 hours and 45 minutes of trying to figure out where was the armhole and where was the neck open. And I finally gave up. And that is when I thought to myself, okay, this is stupid. Fashion is on a treadmill. Nothing is new. It's just recirculated every 5 years or so. Trench coat, great pair of jeans, little black dress. So you are so right. You do not need fashion magazines. And frankly, it's all advertisements, which is another thing you don't need. And the third thing is, I really changed my life a lot, Doctor, when I stopped going to supermarkets and started to buy food online. So when you walk into a supermarket, basically it's highly processed foods on both sides of the beginning aisle, and everything looks attractive, and it must be okay because it's calling itself a health market. And so we are, I think, in an era where it is toxic to the point of really just wrecking your mentality. And I'm going to just say, as much as I admire her, Kim Kardashian is actually the ideal for this age. And she simply preempted a lot of stuff that was kind of roaming around in our brains and gelled it. And it's looking impossibly glamorous 24/7. It is doing very little and becoming very rich from it. And it's basically all about your look, not your brain, not your ambition, not your talent. You just look good all the time, and you too can become a social media star. I know that that is in the younger girls' brains. I am not sure what's in middle-aged women's brains, but for me, I have nobody to follow. Who are my mentors in terms of visual? Nobody. I'm almost 80 years old. Nobody. No one says, try your hair this way, or here's how I learned to put my clothing on and have it look right or pose. So why do you think it is that after the age of 50, 55, you stop getting photographed, you stop getting admired, you stop getting praised, you stop getting offers, you stop getting followed?
Well, I think that's it is subjective, but it also is a part of society. It is entrenched in diet culture that we're supposed to be forever young. And if you look at Demi Moore's new movie, I haven't seen it yet, but the what is it called?
Is that the name?
It's I'd have to look at it. I totally spaced out the name, but it's where she gets a serum and it makes her younger. And I mean, the plot line is so valid for what I think aging women feel. But I think we have a choice on how we decide we're going to age. I'm 52, and I have decided, no, I am not about going into my 50s and 60s lamenting my lost beauty. I refuse to do that. And this goes into the third tip that I wanted to make sure that I got out there about deprogramming from diet culture, is that I think it is so important that we reduce contact with toxic people. And we can see toxicity everywhere. We can, we all have somebody in our family who might talk about our bodies, our weight. They might make fun of us. We have friends out there who are, just crazy about dieting, who are encouraging you to over-exercise and to diet. And I think it is so important not to cut off relationships ever, but to create healthy boundaries when we see these kinds of behaviors and when we hear this kind of messaging. Whenever I hear the message like, "Oh, I'm too old, I can't do that. Oh, I'm canceled in society," that I have to put up a boundary within myself, because I think that type of thinking can only lead you to really awful feelings and really negative behaviors.
Totally.
So when we do this, when we clean our social media feed, when we stop watching advertisements, most especially, and also the news, please stop watching the news, and we reduce contact with toxic people, then what I suggest people to do is find the inspiration within themselves to start to truly listen to their thoughts, examine what they're saying to themselves, and really ask yourselves, if this is a true thought, am I canceled after 50? What are all of my strengths? What are all of the things that, besides the way I look, which, that's fine if you want to keep, yourself healthy and you want to, have better longevity. I am all for that. But what else is, what makes me who I am? And I can say proudly to myself, I'm very educated and I'm so proud of that. I've also found a way for people to never have to diet again, which I think is the most liberating thing on the planet.
I want to stop at that, because I think as we begin to get short on time, I found when my husband died, I gained 90 pounds. I became 200 pounds. And I remember the doctor gave me no diet advice, but said, if this is the way you want to live your life, you are stepping into a minefield with a million health problems. But basically said, you go figure it out. And when I really thought about it, I realized I was an emotional eater. And when I'm sad, I eat. When I'm happy or stimulated, I don't eat. But now, in terms of the age I'm at, I had to really redo it all again and go into intermittent fasting. So for people who perhaps are not so trusting of the internet and don't know where to go for research on this and don't know whether people are always saying to me, oh, you're so thin now, like that's good. I didn't mean to be the body shape I am now. I went through cancer and I lost a lot of muscle mass. So I'm actually being praised for something that is not really very healthy. Who do we turn to? How do we get refocused? How do we get back as we age beyond 50? A sense of pride in ourselves. And I recently made the big career move to become a podcaster. And I did have to sit down and ask myself, if I'm going to be out of fashion and I'm not going to do corporate anymore because it's toxic, what can I carry with me? And it was hopefully a talent for communication and wanting to help people, having a sense of empathy and compassion. How does someone do that as a female who's reached a certain age, has found you can't do what you did when you were young. You can't cheat and eat half a dozen donuts. I used to do that all the time. You can't overeat. You can't just say, I don't care anymore, and then wake up one morning 6 months later and you're 40 pounds heavier and you really care. How can people who are leading a very average life, and this whole field that you're in is new to them, and they're feeling that like maybe they're in a very solo period, what do they do?
I highly recommend that people read my book because I go through the steps. And I think after you've, deprogrammed yourself from diet culture, what I want for everybody who reads my book, who takes the course, who comes to see me, is to learn how to be their own best expert. Because what we don't realize is that our bodies tell us everything. And if we actually retune into our body, as opposed to listening to that person telling us what not to eat and when to eat and all of these things, your body is going to actually tell you. And here's one extremely important tip that I think most people do not understand, is that hunger is actually your friend. Hunger is so important because it is signaling you to your body, telling you you need nourishment. And what we so often have been told is ignore that. Do not pay attention to that because that's bad. But here's what happens if you don't. If you ignore your hunger, your hunger hormone ghrelin is going to go up, 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 up crazy. And then the more you're restricting, it's going to be telling you you can't do this because the body doesn't like to be in restriction. The body likes to feel balanced. So when we put ourselves out of balance, we may even lose weight for a while on a diet, but as soon as we go off the diet, the body's like, oh, okay, we're not starving anymore. I'm going to make you eat so much food that you're going to regain the weight back and even more. So listening to our hunger is probably the most life-changing thing I've ever seen for my clients. When they actually honor their hunger, when they say, okay, I know right now, my body, it's telling me. If my tummy's grumbling, my head is, foggy brained, all I can think of is food. I'm going to give myself food. And when I give myself food as this lovely gift, I'm going to be present with my food. This is something else I teach in the book. Being fully present, not checked out, not dissociated, not on your phone, not watching TV. Be present with your food and use it as a mindful experience. Look at the food, smells of food. Be completely with your food and slowly eat to the point of satisfaction. Your body, if you eat slowly enough, is also going to tell you, okay, that's enough food. And if you listen to this and you're also listening, your body's telling you what you need a lot of the times. And you have to learn how to discern this between the emotional needs and the physical needs. But when you actually address your mental health and you're eating to fulfill your physical needs, which for most people, the body actually really loves whole foods. And it tells you. It's like, oh, Yes, all these colors, all of these fruits and vegetables and these whole grains, beans, legumes, all of these really healthful foods, your body will just zing when you're eating it and it'll tell you. And when you stop and you're no longer hungry, you're telling your body you're safe. And when you tell your body you are safe, then it goes into a parasympathetic nervous system reaction, and then you are able to digest your food and assimilate the food. It is the most natural way of eating. It also allows you to enjoy any eating situation. You don't have to be afraid to go out to a restaurant. You don't have to be afraid during the holidays if you're tuning in and listening to your body. And when
So,
you do this, you naturally lose weight.
excuse me. And so the most interesting thing to me, because I'm a big consumer of TV. I was on television for 30 years, so I'm very used to it. That's how my brain works. All I see are advertisements for junk like pizza, horrible pizzas with pepperoni. And I mean, seriously, folks, talk about destructive diet sodas and sodas. Everything you shouldn't eat is pushed at you constantly with yum, 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 it's delicious. Yum, 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 it's easy. No, you don't have to cook. Yeah, someone's going to deliver it to you in 5 minutes. And we, I think, have achieved this terrible ceiling of obesity in America through advertisement, which is what you're talking about. Now I see equal amount of advertisement for just take one shot a week, 20 seconds, and you'll lose 20% of your weight, body weight. Well, don't be fooled. This, in coupling with all these pizza commercials, is not telling you you're going to be healthier or be eating differently with 20% of your body weight off, because actually you're kind of not going to be eating at all. And you mentioned it, Dr. Tovar, that saying that when you're on something like Ozempic, you may be only eating 600 to 800 calories a day, which is not sustainable either.
Mm-mm. Right. Yes. Right now we're in I think, a pretty precarious time
Yeah.
with the industrialization of food plus medicine coming in to save us from that food.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to create this revolution, because I'm looking at this and, if you know anything about the industrialization of food, it is frightening. They hire food scientists that they actually call craveability experts.
Whoa.
Yes, they design food to make it more appealing, more, there's a debate still, but I think that it's pretty much going the way that they're really trying to make food addictive. And also, medicine is not healthcare, it's truly sick care, because it's really just designed to help you with your symptoms as opposed to cure your symptoms. And then you have the pharmaceutical industry now with all of these weight loss medications coming in to save the day. And all three, if you look at all three, the correlation between the three is that they're all trying to make money. And that
the other correlation, doctor, is that you, as the recipient, as a patient, don't have to do anything. Just buy the pizza, press button on your phone. It'll be there in 5 minutes. You didn't have to go out and shop. You don't know what the ingredients are. You didn't have to cook. And actually, you put it on a paper plate or just eat it out of the container. You're done. With the medicines like Ozempic, as I said, 20-second shot once a week takes 20% of your body weight. So everything is geared for the same thing. A fat, unhappy audience that doesn't want to work towards a cure for their obesity is going to actually make them happy, but they have to work at it.
Yes, but I'd like to just give a little hopeful messaging that I don't even look at it as work. I look at it as self-care and self-love.
Yeah. Yes.
And that is, I don't want to be a slave to the food industry. I understand why they classified obesity as a disease. It's to help to reduce stigma, but I also think it makes people feel like they have no other recourse. That, even Oprah said it. It's like, it's a disease now, so medicine can come in and cure it. And that I don't think is actually true. We didn't have obesity before we had the industrialization of food. Most people in the world were actually a healthy weight before that came about. So I look at obesity as, perfectly timed and correlated. I'm not saying caused by, but it's correlated with the food industry making all of these kind of frankenfoods. And I also just want to preface, I don't want to vilify any foods, because I think we should have all foods be open to us so we don't create these binging, craving episodes. But I also don't want the pharmaceutical industry to come in and save the day. And if all we have to do, and it is not hard, it is not a lot of hard work, it takes self-awareness to be able to do this. It takes not being checked out, but checked into our body.
Yeah.
And really listening, and also really being aware of our thoughts. We are so accustomed to letting our thoughts just go on autopilot that we don't even think about them anymore. And we can actually change those thoughts systematically.
And thinking of self-care as a sense of accomplishment, which is, nothing can be more personal or more satisfying to me than figuring out how to lead a healthier life and suddenly starting to see the benefits of it. Oh, you know what? Honestly, Dr. Tovar, I could talk to you forever. This is fascinating. But the truth is, I end the podcast with, before I even spoke to you, when we go into commercial break for whatever I'm watching on TV, I turn the sound off. Because I know it's all super destructive food, and my brain is going to start saying, you're tired. Do you really want to cook today? Look at how easy that is. You know what? We're going to list a link so that everybody knows and is, I am sure, fascinated by the book you have written. I think the industrialization of food is absolutely the obesity epidemic we're going through, and we need more of you, Dr. Tovar. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Diane. And you're just really wonderful to talk to. And I really hope that your audience is inspired to put their oxygen mask on first, to take care of themselves, to tune into their bodies. And if you have any questions about how to do it, just read my book. It's actually very simple.
We will make sure that everybody gets that information so they can have that opportunity. Do the good work. You're a warrior.
Thanks.
Food warrior. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you so much, Diane.
Thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all too young to be old.